everybody. So today we're going to be covering the rest of the 7 habits. I already covered habits 1 through 4. So now I'm going to cover habits 5 through 7. And let's start with habit 5. Well, actually, I guess first we should probably review the first 4 just so you can kind of feel where it is in the whole mix. So the first habit is to be proactive. So take charge of your life instead of being reactive and let life happen to you, right? Habit 2 is to begin with the end in mind, or have a goal that you have in mind that you have set for yourself so you know if you're working towards it in the correct way and if you're going in the right direction. Habit 3 is the time management habit. So it's to put first things first. And that would be like putting your big rocks or the important things that you have in your life first, then doing the other stuff. That way you get more done on the stuff that is going to push you forward in life instead of just getting whatever fun stuff you want to do right now done and not getting anywhere. Habit 4 was think win-win. So that's, it's not a compromise. It's the belief that we're all equal and we all deserve something, special. We all deserve to, I guess, have an equal opportunity at being successful. And we all do have that opportunity if we're aware of that. Okay, so then that leads us to habit 5. Again, I want you to recall that the first 3 habits are helping the inner victory, or that's the victory within yourself. So those first 3 habits are about your own self-management. Habits 4 through 7 are about how you manage or deal with other people, or how you manage your relationships. And so habit 5 is actually about listening. And the habit is seek first to understand other people, then to be understood. Okay, so seek first to understand others and then to be understood yourself. So the first part of the habit is that you need to learn how to listen by using genuine listening. And genuine listening is listening with your eyes, your ears, and your heart. So you're not just listening to the verbal message. You're not listening to just what the person's saying. You're listening to their body language, the way they're carrying themselves, the way that they're communicating without words. It's very important that you're tuned into those types of communications just as much as it is important for you to know when someone's saying something to you or not, like what their words mean. I would say like 80% of a message that somebody gives you is going to be nonverbal. So if you're not paying attention to the nonverbal cues that go along with speech, then you're not going to get the full message. So I can say something like, "You look nice today." Or I could say, "You look nice today." And I said the same thing, but the intonation in my voice is going to tell you, I mean it a little bit differently. The first time I meant it, the second time I was being sarcastic and kind of being rude. And if I was just listening to the words, I wouldn't pick up on those things. So it's about hearing what's going on beneath just the words that someone's saying and looking at how are they carrying themselves. Do they look upset? Are they okay? Is it a good time to talk to them about something important, or is this a bad time because they're not in the best mood? So it's good to know. There are some poor listening styles that this chapter does review. So it talks about things like self-centered listening. So self-centered listening is when you are always making it about yourself because you have a hard time maybe understanding what other people are going through. And so the best way for you to try to understand it is to try to imagine if that happened to you and what you would do in that situation. Or maybe think about things that have already happened to you that are similar to what's going on with this person. And if you're doing that, then you're actually listening through a very self-centered filter, meaning you're making it about yourself. So when someone's talking about themselves, don't jump in with a story about how that happened to you. That's not good listening. Just listen and try to remain focused. Some people space out while they're listening, and when they do that, that means that they're just thinking about other stuff while people are talking to them. So you could be having a conversation with somebody, and in your head, you're starting to go, "Oh, it's starting to get to be lunchtime. I wonder what I'm going to eat for lunch later. Maybe I should go to P.F. Chang's. No, it's probably not open, but maybe I should go to Subway. Yeah, that's pretty good." And by the time you tune back into the conversation, you've missed a good portion of what the person has been saying. And then you have to either admit that you weren't listening, or try to pretend and cover up the fact that you weren't listening. So if you do find yourself drifting off and spacing out, try to bring yourself back into the conversation. Um, the other type of listening that isn't so great is word listening. So I think I kind of mentioned that already, but like when you're just listening to the words and you're not listening to the deeper message, then that's considered word listening. And I feel like I'm forgetting one. Oh, yes, pretend listening. How could I forget? So pretend listening is basically about when you are pretending that you're listening, but you're actually busy doing something else. So I could be on my phone right now and just be like listening to somebody. I might be half listening, but I'm not listening to the whole thing because obviously I can't really pay attention to my phone and also pay attention to everything that they're saying. So when you're trying to divide your attention between two different things, you're going to have to choose between those things. And so most of the time, you end up choosing your phone over the speech that you're hearing. So it could be video games too. It doesn't have to be your phone. It could be any type of distraction. So pretend listening can be dangerous too, because what if we're agreeing to something by saying, yep, and we don't know what we're agreeing to. So let's say my mom comes in here and says, Amy, can you go to pick up some eggs at the store for me? I'm out of eggs. I'm in the middle of making something. And if I'm sitting there going, yeah, sure, then she will come back a little bit later and be like, okay, where's my eggs? And I'll be like, what? You didn't ask me for eggs. When she did ask me for eggs, I just wasn't listening. So that's why pretend listening can be kind of bad because it can really create some miscommunications between people. All right, so I kind of feel like with listening, that what you should be focused on is understanding what the other person is saying. So you're listening to understand. You're not listening to speak yourself. So it's not about you. You don't need to come up with a story that's similar to this person's story. All you need to do to be a good listener is listen. It's really that simple. But we're so used to having so many distractions and we're used to getting away with being poor listeners that it's hard to actually make that shift and become a good listener again. So I think we can all learn from this habit 5, by learning how to take our phones and put them on silent or away when we're talking to other people, because it's so rude to, be on your phone. Even if it's like socially acceptable now, it's still rude to not listen to somebody fully when they're clearly trying to communicate with you. All right. So it's hard enough without your phone. So let's not make it harder. All right. So moving on to habit 6. Habit 6 is synergize. Okay. So synergize is, oh, wow. It's basically creating synergy. And what synergy is when two or more people are working together to create something bigger and better than either one of them or any of them could create alone. So an example I always use in my classes is the example of a symphony. A symphony is an example of synergy. And the reason why it works is because everybody is working together to create this beautiful piece of music that really they cannot play alone. So maybe they could just play their part, but it's not going to sound the same way as if everybody's playing their particular instrument at the same time. And the conductor is kind of leading the way so they can all work together that way. So it does take some coordination, it does take some planning, it takes a lot of practice, but in the end, like, you could create a symphony with, a group of people, metaphorically too. It doesn't have to be a symphony. It can be anything that you're trying to create or do. One example from my life is we used to have this haunted house. We ran it for 10 years. And the haunted house, we started out in our house, just kind of creating a little mini haunted house for the local kids to come through. And they started doing that, and it got really popular over time. And so we decided to start charging some money, and then we would take the money and give that money to charity at the end of the Halloween season. And we asked for volunteers to come help us. And so it started to get to be this really big production. And where we used to be able to, just as a family, kind of create the haunted house ourselves, we started to need more and more people. And our last year, I think we had like 150 people who helped participate in creating and acting and helping out with in the haunted house. And it turned out great. We made a lot of money for charity over the years. We don't do it anymore because we had to stop. It was just taking up way too much of our time, and I think we were all tired. But we did have a pretty good run, and it was a really amazing feeling to be working with all these different people who were just kind of giving their time because they wanted to help. It was just fantastic, and it felt really good. But synergy can be created in the workplace as well, and that's why I think it's such an important habit. A lot of people have used this habit, synergize, to create synergy amongst their employees while they're working. So if you have like a manager or something like that, or if you are a manager yourself, then you should tell them about synergy. You should tell your fellow coworkers and everything and try to create that. And there's actually an action plan for synergy in your book where you can kind of look through it, and it gives you steps. So if you are in a meeting or whatever and you're in charge of the meeting, if you take people through the steps of synergy, you're going to have a more productive outcome and a productive meeting. Because I notice a lot of times when I go to meetings, the meetings are not the most productive things in the world. So it's kind of nice to have a meeting where everybody gets to put in their input. So kind of the way it goes, this is the action plan for synergy. The way you create synergy is you listen to other people's opinions first. So as a manager, I'm going to be like, okay, this is what we're working on. Who has an opinion? Let me go around and get an opinion from everybody. Everybody contribute. I'm going to put in my contributions last since I'm the manager. Then we're going to see if we can brainstorm some more options together based off of what we've already heard. Maybe we've gotten some new ideas just by listening to each other's ideas. Then we're going to vote on which is the best strategy that we want to adopt, and we're going to adopt that together. And this way, everybody becomes a part of the solution and a part of, progressing to the next level. And if everybody feels like they're a part of making decisions in the company, they're going to feel a lot more invested. So that's kind of nice. But this could apply to, I guess, student projects. So if you've got projects and classes where you have to work with other students, maybe you can apply the action plan for synergy in your group and see how that works out for you, because it might work out really nicely. What else do you need to know about synergy? Oh, yes, of course. Can't forget this. So the thing about synergy is it kind of hints at the fact that diversity is actually a good thing, and it's a better thing than just having a bunch of people who are all the same, if that makes sense. So when you're choosing your group, so if you're choosing your let's say study group for your class, or you're a manager and you're choosing employees, what you want to do is try to choose the most well-rounded group as you possibly can. And I don't just mean this in like an ethnicity way. I also mean this in like a skills way and a personality way, and a lot of those things that that we've been talking about this term in terms of our, I guess, our skill sets that we all have. Like we want everybody who's in our group to have different skill sets, because like we're all good at certain things, but we're all bad at certain things too. So wouldn't it be nice if there was somebody that was good at what you're bad at in your group that, could kind of pull the weight there since you can't pull it? Yeah. So that's why it's really important not to judge others just by the way that they look. You have to look a little deeper into what's their personality traits. What do they bring to the table, like for real, in terms of work ethic and all this other stuff. What do they bring to the table? Are they going to be a good group member? Are they going to be a good employee? So what you need to look at, instead of just looking at what somebody looks like to make those determinations, you need to kind of figure out, okay, how do I get to know this person on a more detailed level or a more in-depth level, so that way I can determine if this is the right person for this position. Okay, so you can actually mention synergy on your resume that you've used the action plan for synergy. A lot of companies like that. It's a little bit of a buzzword to do that. Now the thing is, a lot of people, and I know this, it happens, they think that when we talk about diversity, they think I'm just going to start getting into like racism and prejudice and that kind of stuff. And I guess I could, but that's not really how it works. The way it works is that each one of us is an individual. Okay, so regardless of what our skin color is, regardless of the upbringing we've had, regardless of what group we're currently a part of, that doesn't determine, who we are. What determines who we are is like a ton of different factors. So even if you're part of a bigger group, like let's say that you are from Philadelphia, okay? So you're someone from Philly and you have certain characteristics that probably give away that you're from that area. Maybe an accent, maybe the way you carry yourself. Maybe you even bring it up with people and tell people you're from there. Who knows? But you are not going to be the same as somebody else who's also from Philadelphia. Like you're going to be different because even though you're from the same place, you grew up with a different family. So every family is a little different, and how our families socialize us and make us, turn us into the people that we're going to be is different from family to family. So that's all, that's going to be a factor that makes you different than other people who are even just from that same local area that you're from. Yeah, of course, maybe the color of your skin is going to make a difference in terms of how people perceive you or look at you, but hopefully that's something that is not going to be an issue forever, But for now, I want you, because you guys are college students and you are educated, and the more educated that you are, the more informed you are, okay? And so what I'm informing you of here is that regardless of what someone looks like or where they are from, you cannot tell what type of person they are based off of those two characteristics alone. You need to get to know them, and you need to know a lot more than just that. Because what makes each person an individual is, yeah, they're from a certain place. They grew up with a certain family. But maybe they have a certain set of values that they've built that are the same as their parents, or maybe they're different than their parents. Maybe the type of music they listen to has an influence on them. The type of, like activities they engage in. So if you're engaging in like bloody violence and gore video games all the time, you're probably going to be a really different person than someone that's like, I don't play violent video games. Or what you watch on TV might make a difference too. But also like your habits, the things that you do on a regular basis kind of determine the person that you are. And then of course, like your personality, like you were just born you. And so of course you're going to be unique and you're going to be different and special compared to other people. So what I want you to think about and know is that you are an individual and everybody else is too. And I would say I don't like being judged based off of the way I look alone. Although I think a lot of people do judge one another based off of how we look, because that's something that we can physically see quickly and make a judgment on. But if you're just judging people based off of how they look, you're missing most of the picture of who they are. And you may be missing out on someone really cool. So the other thing is you want lots of individuals who, I guess, are true to themselves and going to share their opinions and I guess be honest with you about what's going on with them. Those are the kind of people you want on your team, whatever team it is, whatever your objective is. You want people who have different skills than you to be on your team. But you can't just tell what skills people have just by looking at them. You have to get to know them a little bit more in depth. And that's why we have interviews in the first place, okay? So when we look at someone's resume, or let's say I'm a hiring manager and I get a resume and I start looking at it and I'm like, wow, this resume is pretty good. But it's on a really small piece of paper. That's very odd. But if I'm looking at someone's resume, I might get a picture for what type of person they are, but I'm not going to get the full picture. And the best way for me to get a better or more full picture is to bring that person in for an interview and ask them some critical questions. So what you're going to find is that when you're interviewing for jobs, that you're going to get asked questions that I guess we're going to help the employer to figure out if you're the type of person, your personality fits in with the team that they currently have. That's pretty much what people are looking for. Is this candidate the right person that's going to work well with the group we have right now? And I think that's one of the biggest things that hiring managers do have to say about hiring employees is that what I'm looking for is someone that's going to work well with the team that's already working on this project. So it's important that they have the right skill set. So if a group of people at a job don't have certain skills, obviously when they're hiring somebody to join that team, they're going to be looking for someone that has the skills that the other people don't have. So it's really not in your best interest to try to be somebody that you're not. Okay, so when you're filling out job applications and when you're writing your resume and your cover letter and everything else, um, you may think that like your personality traits are not that awesome because probably because you've been living with them a long time and you're used to them and you don't realize how unique and special you actually are. Every person has something unique and special to bring to the table. And it's important that you know who you are and you let other people know who you are and what you stand for, what you're about. It's good to have that identity where you know who you are and what you value so you can share that with your team. And if you can share that with your team and it's a good fit and you actually get hired, fantastic. Then that's probably going to be a great place for you because they really need someone like you. But if you go into a job interview and you lie and you're not honest about who you are because you feel like maybe you should have skills that you don't have, maybe you wish that you were more like this when you're really like this, and you want to go in and like try to pretend you're a different way, don't do that. Because trust me, there's going to be a group of people out there that are looking for you as you are, not you as you're pretending to be. Okay? So the second part of this habit, I guess, is you need to realize that it's not about just putting up with people who are different than you. Okay? And I mean that across lots of different boards. We're not talking about just being prejudiced, or we're not talking about ethnicity here. What we're talking about is when people are different than you are in personality, when when they're not similar to you, you need to learn how to find, I guess, the excitement in the difference between you and that person. Because the more different somebody is from you, the more you actually have to learn from them. And I think our first instinct as humans sometimes is to be afraid of what's different than us. But the more educated we become, the more we realize that differences are actually good. It's wonderful that we're all a little different because there's a lot of different jobs that need to be done. And we need all different kinds of people to do those jobs. So if you in this class figure out exactly what matches up with your personality type, like which career would be a good fit for you, or even if you've got like 10 by the end of this, you're doing great. You don't have to pick and choose anything. There's no rule that says you got to have it chosen by the end of the semester or anything like that. But it's good to have some ideas. And so if you've gotten like, a few ideas and you've narrowed it down from like millions of jobs down to like 10, then you've done a great job this term, okay? And please, please, please be true to who you are and what you bring to the table because you are unique and special. And companies are looking for you. They're looking for someone like you who's willing and ready to develop your skills and become better at what you're already good at. And build upon the things that make you who you are instead of working against those things, if that makes sense. So synergize is learning how to work well with others by figuring out where's the team that's looking for someone like me and working with them in a way where you're listening not just to your own ideas, but also to everybody's ideas and really opening your mind to learn from the people that you're working with. All right. So our final habit today is habit 7. Habit 7 is sharpen the saw, and I'm actually going to link up a video, I think right underneath this one, or right, I guess the next thing you'll see would be that video that explains the story that goes behind sharpening the saw. So it's the story of sharpening the saw. So I'll let you listen to that. It's basically just me telling a story. So habit 7, the saw is basically you. So your metaphor, a metaphor, you are a saw, okay? And you're either sharp or you're not so sharp. Or I guess you could be really dull too. But what we mean by this is it's like if you're a saw, and you cut through something. You want to be sharp before you cut through it, right? Because if you're sharp, you'll cut through it faster. If you're dull, it will take you a lot longer to go through. Okay? So you want to make sure that you're sharp. So how do you stay sharp? And what do we mean by sharp? Okay, so sharp means like you're at your best, you're feeling good, your mind is clear, you're ready to work, and you can get through your work quickly because you're feeling so sharp. So you probably feel your sharpest when you're most alert, awake, and aware, whatever time of day that is. It's different for everybody. So I'm actually a night person. So I actually turn on like about 10:30 p.m. That's when I start to feel like, oh, I'm awake now. Great. And then I'm up till like 2 in the morning, and then I sleep in a little bit in the morning. And when I wake up, I'm like, not really all the way awake. I have to have coffee and showers and all kinds of stuff before I feel like I'm ready to meet the day. Okay. So maybe you're the kind of person that just pops up right in the morning and you're ready to go. So when you're your sharpest, that's when you should do your most work, right? You should do your most work when you're feeling sharp. So there are some things that you can do to keep yourself sharp or to ensure that you're the sharpest that you can be. Okay. So the first, well, basically, you got to keep these 4 different areas kind of handled. All right. You've got to be working on yourself in all of these areas. And these areas are the body, the brain, the heart, and the soul. Okay. So let's talk about how to sharpen yourself in those areas. So in the body area, you definitely, it's like the basics, like you're eating right. You're getting plenty of water. You're not drinking a bunch of like alcohol and sugar and stuff like that. Um, you're watching what you eat, not eating a lot of fast food. You're exercising because exercise is really good for you. You're having safe sex because not having safe sex can lead to STDs and other yucky things that you don't want. You're What else is healthy? I don't know. All those things are healthy. So basically, you're just working on your body taking care of yourself. And a lot of people let this go. And I was one of those people. So growing up, I just pushed myself and pushed myself. And I was one of those people. I was like, I got to finish school. I'm gonna get my PhD. And I was crazy. So I did a lot of work. And I would get up at like 8 a.m. and I would work until like midnight. Like every day I would do a day like that. And on top of that, I would also like to like go out and have fun and party with my friends like everybody else. But my friends weren't all working as hard as I was, so I was like working really hard and partying really hard. And then at the end of all of it, I ended up getting really sick to the point where it debilitated me, and I had to take time off from graduate school and all kinds of stuff because I hadn't been taking care of myself. And even though I ate pretty well, I just didn't take care of my body in terms of my health. I wasn't eating right. I wasn't getting enough rest. I was pushing myself to work harder and harder. It wasn't healthy. So I really did have to start thinking, how can I get more imbalance in this area? So some things that I did to correct that was I started working less hours. I actually went down to part-time kind of permanently because I couldn't maintain working that heavy of a schedule and still get better. So I had to like lower that. I had to take my time finishing grad school. It took me a longer time than I would have liked, but sometimes you have to honor your body. Your body is your vessel. Like if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. Like you can't do anything if you're not healthy. So taking care of yourself and your health is probably the best thing you can do for your body. Okay, so the next thing is the brain. Okay, so the brain is, you got to kind of keep it always going. You got to keep it active. So like, how old people, like after a while, if they don't keep working on stuff, they kind of start to lose their ability to do things. Like if you don't do math all the time, eventually you can't add numbers in your head anymore. Just ask me. I'm horrible at math. And I realized that I started using my calculator for everything like maybe 10 years ago. And now I tried to add numbers in my head and I'm like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. I can't even add a number in my head. But it's like whatever you don't practice, you kind of lose. So I would suggest adding numbers in your head. One way to practice is to, like, if you're going to the grocery store or something, just try to keep a running tally in your head of how much money you're spending. So like, it's like, oh, $9.99 for this, $12.99 for that. Try to keep that going in your head and figure out what the total is before you get to the end. That's just a great way to practice using numbers if you don't do that regularly. Reading for fun, not just for school, but just stuff that you want to read for fun. And I would say even listening to audiobooks would count here because it's still stimulating your brain. So if you're not a big reader, maybe you're a pretty good listener and you can do the audiobooks and don't have an issue. You could do that. Doing puzzles like for your brain, like Sudokus or word puzzles, crosswords, things like that. I do a lot of spatial games because I don't know, I have really bad spatial problems, meaning I struggle to park my car, parallel park. Sometimes when I'm driving, it's like, oh man, it's really rough. I've been known to run into doorways because I can't judge the amount of space I have and how big my body is. So yeah, so I'll practice spatial stuff like Tetris and games like that will help me visually. So whatever your weakness is, do that. Traveling helps your brain, so there's an excuse to. Hold on just a sec. There we go. Sorry, my computer sometimes goes into sleep mode. But anyways, so with the brain area, you just want to kind of keep yourself engaged with things. Having really meaningful debates or deep conversations with other people is another great way. Going to like museums and things like that is fabulous. One that I really love that I would recommend to you guys is to go to the Huntington Library. I go there all the time. I'm a yearly member. It's like $120 for a year membership, and you can go anytime you want. And it's $25 just for one ticket to go for one day. So I just bought the one for the year, and this is my second year doing it because it's so beautiful. There's lots of museums there, but it's also a huge botanical garden. So it's a great place to go to stimulate your mind. And if you have children, it's a great place to stimulate their minds too. And that 120 includes children. So if you've got, I think it includes up to 2 kids and then 1 additional adult. So every time I go, I could bring my boyfriend and my kids if I want to. So kind of cool, right? All right, so let's move on to the next area. So we did body, we did brain. Now we're going to do heart. So in the heart dimension, one of the things that you can really do is look at the relationship bank account and the personal bank account. Now, I mentioned in my last video about the 7 habits. I mentioned that around habit 4 in the book, there is a thing called the personal bank account. The personal bank account is basically it's an account of self-esteem. So when you make deposits into that account by doing good things, you raise your self-esteem level. And when you do bad things, it decreases your self-esteem level. So for example, if you say, I'm going to wake up at 5 in the morning and go running tomorrow, and then you don't do it the next day, then that's a withdrawal from your personal bank account because you made a promise to yourself and you broke it. So when you break that promise, that's going to lower your self-esteem and you're going to feel bad, which is like, no duh, like if you break your promises to yourself, of course, yeah. But it also goes for like if you break your promises with other people in the relationship bank accounts. Let's talk about that. So the relationship bank account is when every single person that you have an interaction with, you have a bank account with, okay? So like if I walk past you at Chafee campus and I give you a dirty look, then I've just opened an account with you with a negative balance. And if you give me a dirty look back, you've just lowered the balance further. But on the other hand, if I walk past you and I smile and say hello, and then you smile and say hello, then we both made deposits into our relationship bank account, which is cool. And also our personal bank account because we're being nice to other people. That's going to make us feel good about us too. All right. So you want to make sure with this that you're realizing that in relationships, no matter whether you know somebody or not, you don't know how your relationship is going to turn out. So sometimes we'll like meet somebody at school or something, and then later on we'll find out they're dating our cousin and now they're in a part of our family or something. So you never know. So that's why it's good to treat others with kindness and respect, regardless of, how you really feel about them. Just be polite and nice to others. There's no need to, if you don't like somebody, just don't spend time with them. Ignore them, when possible. But what I was trying to say is that with the relationship bank account, it's not just about you, it's about the other person. So sometimes relationships are mutually beneficial, meaning I'm putting stuff in, you're putting stuff in. If both people are making deposits into the account and only occasionally making the withdrawal, then that relationship's probably going to go on pretty healthfully and be a happy relationship. But a lot of relationships are unbalanced, meaning like you're doing all the giving and they're doing all the taking, or vice versa. They're doing all the giving and you're doing all the taking. And I don't care who you are, you're going to be on all sides of relationships. Like there's just going to be some dynamics in relationships where you're kind of the bad guy, and some dynamics where, the other person's a bad guy. And then some dynamics where everything is great and you guys are really creating a fantastic relationship. And then other relationships where it's kind of rocky up and down and no one knows what's happening. So with relationship bank account, you can only take care of your end. You cannot make somebody take care of their end. So if you're in a relationship bank account that is unbalanced, it's really good to get the hell out of that relationship as quickly as you can, because you're going to keep getting disappointed over and over again. If someone's kind of disappointed you a couple times and you've had a talk with them about it, so I recommend, sitting down and saying, hey, it seems like I'm always giving, you're always taking. Give somebody a chance to, fix it. But if they don't fix it, then get the heck out of that relationship, because if they don't care enough about you to give you that respect, then why are you bothering with a relationship with them? Makes no sense. So back to habit 7, we're talking about the heart dimension. So the relationship bank account and the personal bank account are really what goes into this. So let's talk about that. So if you're doing good things for yourself and other people, then you're going to feel good about yourself and you're going to have good relationships with others. If you're bad to yourself and you're bad to other people, then you're going to feel bad and you're going to have bad relationships. So it's really important that you look at the state of your current relationships and ask yourself, like, how am I doing? How are things going? Should I be doing this or not? I also want to say that sometimes we have to let go of family, because they're just making us feel crappy all the time. And for some of you guys, you may be in dysfunctional family situations on a regular basis, and you might not realize that your family isn't the greatest because they're your family. And sometimes you don't really know, because you don't have anything to compare it to. You don't really know how other people's families are. But this is a good way for you to judge if you're in a healthy relationship with your family. Just ask yourself, when I'm with my family, how do I feel? Or when I'm with my friends, how do I feel? Do they make me feel good? Do they make me feel bad? So if you're having a lot of bad feelings when you're around people, you want to ask yourself why that is. And you want to look at the relationship bank account and the personal bank account and say, well, what am I doing? Am I making deposits or am I making withdrawals? Are the other people involved making withdrawals too? What's going on here? So sometimes you can fix relationships by just having a really good solid talk about it. But sometimes it's like they're so used to, I guess, doing what they're doing and they're not really willing to change, that you kind of have to make that hard decision. Like, either I accept them for who they are and what they're doing, or I don't. Either I want to be a part of this relationship or I'm done. So you have to ask yourself those things. But it's good to check in with yourself every once in a while and ask yourself, am I in healthy relationships? Because if the answer is no, then you need to ask yourself, okay, how do I get out of these unhealthy relationships? I know it can be really difficult to do that. But when it comes to your heart, you've got to take care of yourself. Just as much as you got to take care of other people, you got to take care of yourself. And you also have to let other people in and let other people take care of you sometimes. That's part of the relationship bank account as well. When you see someone's having a hard time that's your friend and you start taking care of them and helping them out, that's really nice. When it's your turn and you're upset and sad, it may not be that same friend that's taking care of you, but is someone there for you? That's what you need to ask. If you kind of find like no one's ever there for you when you really have a problem, it's probably because you're in a lot of unbalanced relationships where you're doing all the giving and no one's giving anything to you. So if that's the case, you can change that. Sometimes it's just having a conversation with the people you're in relationships with and explaining what you need. Sometimes it's a little bit harder than that, and you have to cut ties with people because they're not really healthy for you. But whatever the situation, you really got to look at this in terms of, okay, I got to take care of my mental health and everything first. Then I can take care of all my friends and family's mental health and everything else after. Okay? So you got to be okay to really be good in relationships. So that's why it's important to start by looking at the personal bank account and asking yourself, okay, where can I make adjustments so I can feel kind of on top of it in all these areas? And then kind of look at the relationship bank account after that, once you kind of feel like you've got yourself in order. Both of those things. So doing nice things for others is something that's going to make your heart feel good. So I would say do a lot of charity, community service. When you see somebody that needs help with something, stop and help them out. Of course, don't put yourself in danger, but when you can, help people out. It doesn't hurt anything. It actually helps you because you feel better about yourself, and it helps that other person. They feel good about themselves. So it's a win-win for everybody. Okay, so we did body, we did brain, we did heart. Now we're going to do soul. So for the soul dimension, a lot of people believe that you have to be religious in order to, I guess, develop their soul or to take care of this dimension. And that just isn't true. You can't, your soul is separate from religion. All right. They're two different things. So you can nurture your soul by hanging out in nature, going to the beach, going up to the mountains, just, putting down your phone for a little bit and really just immersing yourself in nature is cool. So, and again, I will recommend Huntington Library again. It's kind of by Pasadena. Yeah. But that's a really great place to, I guess, soul search. When I say soul search, I mean, you're kind of looking for meaning. Like, what is the meaning of life? What is your purpose here? And for some, the answer is religious. Like, I'm a Christian and I'm here to, or I'm Muslim and I'm here to. So whatever your religion is, that could fit into the soul dimension. It might not. I don't know. Only you can determine that. But I'm not super religious myself. I was actually raised Lutheran, which is kind of a branch of Christianity. It's the first break off from Catholicism. But I was raised that way. And so over the course of my life, I had to kind of learn about that religion and decide if I personally believe that or not. And what I found is I do believe in God, but I'm not really so much a religious person. But that doesn't mean that I can't nurture my soul, And I find that the things that nurture my soul the most are things like being creative. So when I create like a piece of writing, or if I create a piece of music or create a piece of art, things like that really make me feel like I'm more in touch with, my higher power. Okay. And I used to work as a drug and alcohol counselor. I think I remember telling you guys that in my intro video, but with that, I kind of learned something from one of the counselors there. And she basically said, well, my higher power, which is, I guess, like kind of like the replacement for God, because they don't want to say God. But she said, my higher power is actually a tree. And I planted it when I first started getting clean in my front yard. And someone was like, well, what happens if the tree dies? And she goes, the tree hasn't died yet. So hopefully it won't. And she said, when I moved, I actually dug up the tree and moved it to my new property. So it would be there for me. So for her spiritual dimension was nurtured by kind of taking care of this tree, because the tree was a metaphor that represented her recovery. And so there's no right or wrong way to do the soul dimension. There really isn't. But some things that people do say are helpful in this dimension are things like prayer, meditation, soul searching, and for me, I also mentioned like writing and doing art and things like that. So I think tapping into those creative juices and kind of asking yourself those questions about why are we here? Why am I here as a human being? What does that mean? What is this journey about? And trying to connect to either nature, your higher power, or God, however you see it. It's a really personal journey. So there's not like one right way to do it. Okay. So that is habit 7. So you want to keep all of those areas sharp. So when those areas are all, being worked on and kind of in an equal way, and you're not really dropping any of them, then you've kind of mastered that 7th habit, sharpen the saw. Because if you're sharp in those 4 areas, you're going to be sharp in all the other areas. And you're going to cut through all of your work, your problems, your issues, everything so quickly. All right, so that concludes my video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.